Okay, so what we'll cover today is what to include when you're applying. We're also going to go over the required documents for the application, uh, how to meet the minimum transfer requirement versus applying with an associate degree, how to find the transfer application on the university or college's website, also how to navigate the Common App, and good tips and advice on how and when to fill out the application so that your application stands out. So for minimum admissions requirements, minimum requirements is going to include a GPA. Every school is going to have a standard GPA or a range, as well as courses required. Depending on the different majors, the courses are going to change. So, for example, if you're, a biology major, it would make more sense for you to have some of the biology and chemistry courses as opposed to if you were a psychology major, then you may have some psychology, sociology courses. So knowing the difference and what the school requires is very important. And then some examples of this is like in comparison from NC State to ECU for different majors, like I said, what those requirements may be. And we'll move on to the next slide. So GPA and why it matters. So every 4-year institution is going to have that minimum GPA requirement, like I said before. There are also going to be requirements specific to the majors, like I also said before. So basically, what you want to do is you want to make sure the institution you're trying to transfer to or that you're considering, you go to their website, you look up the major, and you look up those requirements so you know exactly what you need to have completed prior to applying. And then also, earning C's equals a 2.0 GPA. I know that sounds really self explanatory, but a lot of students seem to think that, if they have one really, really good semester, that it can offset several bad or average semesters. And mathematically, it just doesn't work that way. So you want to make sure you're always putting your best foot forward in all of your classes and try to get the highest GPA you could possibly get so that your application is more competitive. So course repeats. So course repeats are necessary sometimes depending on the major and the class. Obviously, if you can help not having to repeat a course, that would be ideal. But we do realize that it happens. It gets to a really important part, especially if it's major specific. So, for example, if you're a nursing major and you want to transfer to a nursing school and your anatomy and physiology grade, let's say, is a C or a D, well, while those are passing grades, it's not going to be beneficial if you're trying to transfer as a nurse. Just frankly speaking, would you want to go and be cared for by a nurse who did terrible in all of her biology classes? Probably not. So, in a case or a situation like that, or let's say you just have some outside circumstances that kind of affect your grade and you need to retake a course, then that's fine. What you don't want is to be taking a course over and over and over again, because that's going to reflect negatively. Same thing with withdrawals. Especially recently, with COVID and everything, things happen, so you may need to withdraw from a course and retake it. But the same concept, basically, you don't want to have your transcript riddled with withdrawals because it's going to raise an eyebrow, especially when someone's reviewing your application. And then also, we do have a GPA calculator in self-service under the My Progress tab where you can check your GPA. And it also has a feature that'll let you put grades that you anticipate in courses to see, like, this semester I'm taking 3 classes and I have an A, a B, and a C. How is that going to affect my overall GPA? And you can actually do hypotheticals like that as well. So accomplishment and involvement outside of the classroom. So obviously there's volunteer work that you can do, different clubs, organizations. If you're a student athlete, these are all things you kind of want to include, especially campus organizations. And you can find more information from that on the extra site through self-service as well. And then off-campus organizations, or if you have like a part-time job or an internship, any type of work experience, you want to make sure you include that, because that can be the determining factor between you and another student with a similar course load and GPA and things like that. Those are the things that kind of can separate you. And Amanda also put that in the chat, so definitely check out the extra website. And the application process. So once again, like I said, you want to go on the institution's website and get the dates and deadlines. That's also where you can find the application and the fees. Sometimes some schools or institutions will do like an application fee waiver. So you definitely want to check for that, for opportunities like that. Secondly, you want to make sure you order your transcripts. A lot of times you'll end up sending multiple transcripts, especially if you're currently in the courses. You want to send a transcript showing what you've already completed, what you're currently in, and then you would want to send another transcript once grades close so that they know that you passed those courses. Also, your personal statement, and if you're in an ACA course, they actually have that as an assignment. So you would want to definitely save that. That way you have a personal statement kind of already done. Same thing with references, and you also want to make sure that you're adhering to the deadlines that the institution set. Um, so a lot of schools will have like a priority um, application deadline. Schools like App State, where housing and things like that may be an issue, or even if it's just, if it's moving to Charlotte or moving to Greenville or something like that, you want to make sure you're following the early deadline, just because you have to make accommodations for moving and things like that.
All right, thanks, Mike. I think I'm taking the next slide. Let me see. Yeah. Okay, so, and one thing I forgot to mention in the beginning too is we will have a question and answer portion at the end of this event. So if you think of questions, you can put them in the chat now, but we'll probably save those until the end. So Mike mentioned a lot on the last slide about the application process. One of the things he mentioned was requesting your transcript. A part of that application process, besides the actual application, is going to be requesting your official transcript from Wake Tech to be sent to the transfer school of your choice, or to a couple of different ones that you might be applying to. So this just outlines, and we'll actually walk through this on the website too, but this outlines how you can request that transcript through the Wake Tech website. If you're on the main Wake Tech homepage, you can select the Student Services button, and once you get there, you'll select Registration and Records, and then there's a How-To button or just an Order Transcripts button right on that first page. You can do either one. And that'll take you to a page that will show you how to, we'll have a button where you can actually request that transcript. I'm gonna kind of leave the PowerPoint for a minute and go to the main Wake Tech website. And I'm gonna go through those steps. I'm clicking on Student Services first, and then I am going to scroll down till I see Registration and Records. And then I can see Order Transcripts is right here, or I can do a how-to to find it. But since it's right on that first page, I'm just going to click on that. And there are a couple of different types of transcripts students can order depending on what they're needing it for. You are not wanting to submit an unofficial to these schools because they need to see that official typically. So you're going to want to scroll toward the bottom of the page where it says request a transcript online, and that will be processed through our National Student Clearinghouse website. So you can just go through this link and it'll take you to that National Clearinghouse website where you can review the information and order your transcripts. You can also request a transcript in person at these campus locations. So if you're having trouble with the website and you just prefer to request it in person, that's fine. And you can also request it through the mail if you prefer to do it that way. But I would honestly say ordering it online is the easiest way. And one key with that is just making sure that, one, you're ordering the official transcript, and then two, that you are having it sent directly from Wake Tech to the transfer school of your choice, because because if it's not sent, maybe it's sent to you and then you send it on, it might then be considered unofficial. So just keep that in mind. So I'm going to resume the PowerPoint. So this next slide gives you one more way that you can request your transcript. So you can also request it through your self-service account. Once you log into that account, yours will of course look a little bit differently than mine does, but you'll be able to go to a menu on the left-hand side and you can click that academics button, and there is the request official transcript option. And that will actually take you to that same page we were on, where you'll order through the same National Clearinghouse website. So that's just another way that might be easier for some students to order that transcript. All right, so next we are gonna talk a little about application types. The biggest application type when I was in college was through the cfnc.org website, and it still houses a number of applications to the schools in North Carolina. So we're gonna look at that screen in a minute, but there are other application types that we will talk about today. The other one on this slide that you can see is the application portal on the college website. So a lot of colleges will also have their application option for you to apply right through their website. And we'll look at both of those options before we move into the third type, which is very common, which is Common App. So let's see. Okay, so I'm already on cfnc.org, but I'm just on their homepage. So most people, I believe, or most students probably already have a CFNC account, because I think, at least in North Carolina, a lot of those students will create that in high school. But if you didn't, you can create an account, or I already have an account, so I will just sign in. And then this will take you back to the main page after you've signed in. The main thing that we are focused on today, although CFNC has a lot of really great resources on this website, we are focused on applying to college for this presentation. So when you click into that apply to college, you can read a little bit about how to apply, but the main thing here we're looking at is the application hub. So I'm going to click into that. And you can see I don't have any applications or transcripts to display, so I can decide if I want to start an application. And then basically I can search, you can see I've been in here. I'm going to search Wilmington, but really, as you can see, there's community colleges and four-year schools, public and private, that will be listed in this list. So if I go to we'll just do Wilmington, and I select the type of application, because I'm gonna do an undergraduate application for UNC Wilmington, and then I can click apply, and that will actually open up the undergraduate application for Wilmington. So that'll take me to the application webpage. They'll give me a lot of information here, different application types. So we see freshman applicant, and then we see transfer applicant, and some important information to know about what's needed for each. So CFNC, that's one option. You can add them to your application hub. You can add multiple schools and do multiple applications. You can also request your high school transcripts through here, but you cannot request your college transcripts through here. So that's just an important difference to note. Depending on how you're applying, if you've completed minimum admissions requirements or if you're applying with your full degree, will determine if you need to request the high school transcripts. It can also depend on the college you're applying to. But if you need to request them, you can do that directly through your high school, or you can do that through CFNC. So that was one way, and for some reason it didn't actually add to my portal. Oh, yeah, for some reason it didn't add to my portal, but I'm thinking if I log out and log back in, oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah, so typically it'll add that and it'll show you where you're at in the process of completing that application and if you're going to submit that transcript. So that's one option, one application type, cfnc.org. Another application type is just going directly to the website for the college itself. So I'm already on UNC Wilmington's homepage and I click into their admissions. I am interested in their undergraduate admissions and I clicked apply now. And then you again can see how they differentiate first year students and transfer students. They give you the two options they have for applications, which is CFNC or the UNCW application. If I click the second option, then it brings me to a page where I need to either create an account or log into an account for UNC Wilmington. So you can apply either way, as you saw on their website. A lot of times, if you apply through the website, you'll already be taken to your own kind of portal. But keep in mind, if you apply, a different way, you'll usually get access to some sort of portal like that at some point throughout the application process, because that's usually how they'll notify you of the decision. So, switching back to the PowerPoint, we went over two application types or ways you can apply depending on the school. And then the third option, which we'll talk a little more in depth about, is the Common App. So this is common for students. A lot of students will apply to NC State University this way, UNC Chapel Hill's on this. We have a lot of private schools on this application. It just really depends. The good thing about Common App is you can put in your information once and you can have multiple schools and you're applying to all of those schools. Now there will be a portion in Common App that will be specific to that school or program that the information will differ a little bit, but all of your general info like your previous college classes, college coursework, GPA, all of that you only have to enter once into Common App. So I'm going to go back into our shared screen and I'm on the Common App. Well, let me see. I'm on the Common App homepage and you can either create an account if you don't already have one, or you can sign in as a transfer student. And I already have an account, so I'm just going to sign in. Now, when you first sign in, you first create your account, you'll actually be taken to the Add Program page because you will not have any applications if you're just creating your account. So I'm going to start here. But basically, a few cool things you can do. You can go ahead and filter. So, for example, you can filter by state, by college, by start term, deadline, application fee requirement, and country. So I am going to go ahead and start by filtering for North Carolina, and I'm going to just keep that available programs open. And then I start to see the colleges pop up that are for North Carolina that I can apply to. So you'll see the college name kind of in the gray kind of box, but you'll also see everything is kind of categorized at the top. So program name, country, city, state, the start term that you'd be applying for. So you do want to make sure you select the correct term that you want to start with. The application deadline, depending on the start term, application fee, and admissions plan. So some of these do have rolling admissions. For Barton College, you can apply for fall or spring. And if you did want to, say I wanted to select Barton for fall, I can click on it and I have added it to my list of programs that I'm going to apply to. And then kind of scrolling through, I can decide if I want to apply to any of the other schools listed. As you can see, Elon is already marked on here that I'll be applying to. So there's a number of schools listed here. A lot of them are private. We're starting to get into some of the more public, NC State University, NC State University. So I'm going to go back up and I'm going to go ahead and say I've checked off everything, every school I want to apply to. so far, then I'm ready to go back to my application. And this is basically your dashboard. It's your application hub, kind of like CFNC, but this is going to house everything you need to fill out for all applications. So you'll see you have notification areas. You can also view those notifications by clicking on this little bell at the top. But when you first start, you will want to, of course, gather all your materials before you actually start the application, sign in or create an account, and then start on this personal information page once you've selected your programs you want to apply to. So you can go ahead and fill in different information based on your personal information. So communication preferences, biographic info, contact information, nationality, race and ethnicity, other information. And then one point I do want to make on this presentation is there is a Common App fee waiver. So we'll talk more about fee waivers later, but you can see if you're eligible for the Common App fee waiver by clicking into it and filling out some different questions. And that's kind of neat because not all fee waivers are included in different application types. So we'll come back to more about that. Oops, go back to my application. So say you filled out all your personal information, you're ready to move on to the academic history. Just clicking into that, you can go ahead and enter high schools attended. I have went ahead and filled in my college information. There we go. I skipped one. Colleges attended, which I think is why college coursework has been checked off, because I have already submitted that I attended Wake Tech as an example student, and that brings me to another way I can order my transcript. So if you're applying through Common App, you can actually request your transcript to be sent through Common App. You would just put in any colleges that you've already attended, and then you would select the order option. And typically, if you're doing through Wake Tech, that would be through our National Student Clearinghouse website typically, but it looks like it gives you another option here as well. So you can still choose to order through the Wake Tech website, or you can order on the Common App website and have it sent to the schools that way. After that is GPA information, standardized tests. So if you wanted to add your ACT and SAT scores, typically that is optional, depending on the requirements of the school and how many transfer credits you're transferring in with. But if you think that your ACT and SAT scores are going to be beneficial for you to enter in this application, then I would encourage you to still include them if you think they'll help you. And then some continuing, if you took any continuing education courses, SAT subject test, AP classes, AP test, IB test, or IB, and then CLEP, and then any other, exams that you may have had throughout high school or college that can be helpful in filling out that academic history. Once that's complete, you can also move on to supporting information. So again, you're only filling this information in once. When you click into that supporting info, you can go ahead and start with experiences. Mike touched on this already too, the importance of having some outside of the classroom experience, like volunteering, doing internships. There's work experience, that's important as well. Internships, all kinds of things. You can go ahead and add that in. As well as any achievements that you have, any awards that you've been given, that can be important for the schools to have on your application as well. And then any extra documents that you want to include, you can, although typically, it'll say if it's required or not. And then affirmation statement is the last one in this section. Now, those 3 sections are going to remain the same for the universities, but this program material section here is where it really does start to differentiate based on the school. So first, I'm going to go ahead and click on NC State University. We'll say that's our first one we want to go ahead and and focus on, we can see the deadline is listed up here, February 15th, 2022, because I'm applying for their fall semester. You can see their contact information, social information, like social media information, and then they even have their application fee listed on this page as well. So each of these pages will include just some general school information, and then you're going to move on to the questions portion, which is typically if there's any essays or personal statements, a lot of times that's where this will be housed. So for example, NC State wants you to indicate your academic program by selecting from the drop-down list and then explaining why you've selected that program and why you're interested in NC State. Notice they give you 2,000 word limit, so that's just important to be aware of. Actually, it might be a character limit. So a 2,000 character limit. So keep in mind, you'll want to be mindful to not put just a sentence or two, but you do want to keep it within that 2,000 characters. So what I typically recommend to students is go ahead and type this information, maybe in a Word document. That way, just in case something happens, technology can be weird sometimes. So just in case something happens, you haven't started typing all this information in and accidentally forgotten to save it, and then it's all gone. So I typically advise students just to type it in a Word doc, copy and paste it over, but also that can be tricky because you do want to make sure you're hitting that, not necessarily hitting the 2,000 character, but you don't want to go over the 2,000 character limit. So just being mindful of that. Don't just put a sentence or two. You want to go into a little more detail. And then they'll ask some more questions, different contacts, if you've previously applied to NC State, if you have any family or relatives that have attended or worked there, residency information, and then more about you. So they'll have some more areas, again, with a longer character limit where you can really expand on these questions. And I would encourage you to answer every question on every application because that really is going to help the school get a more holistic picture of you as an applicant, a student, and a person. And then lastly, yes, you'll see if there's any other required documents. There are none for NC State, but you can choose to upload an optional document. Now, I do want to give an example of a few others. So A&T has some general info again listed, and then they'll have different questions. You'll see that theirs will look very different from NC State, and you'll also want to go through and fill out their questions and review their required documents as well. And lastly, I just want to talk briefly about UNC Chapel Hill because they actually have another section here. So we see they have all the same tabs. Of course, they're going to be different questions, different documents potentially required. And then they also do require an academic recommendation letter, and you can request that through the Common App website. It will tell you if it's required, and then they allow for additional letters that are not required but optional. So lastly, we've kind of gone through all of the application components. You'll also be able to submit your application once you finish filling in all the info. I always encourage students to fully review the application. Sometimes it can help to just download it, have it all on one page, fully review it before you're submitting it, and then just make sure you're submitting by the deadline. So you can do that all through this submit application webpage. And then check the status. So once you've submitted those applications, you'll actually be able to see if they are in progress or submitted, and then also if your transcript has been submitted or has arrived at the school from Wake Tech. So I realize that was pretty long-winded, but I do hope that it was helpful. I'm going to switch back to our presentation. We have just a couple more slides left, and then we're going to take questions. So this basically goes through everything we just talked about, going to the dashboard on Common App, of course, answering all those questions, uploading any additional documents, recommendation letters, and just reviewing the application for any errors. All right, next we're going to talk about tips and tricks for applying. So First, make sure you're using a personal email address that is not a Wake Tech email, and preferably a professional email address. You see we have some fun examples up here of what not to do. We typically recommend some version of your name at gmail.com. For example, I would use Tucker A, or you could use your full name. But my name is Amanda Tucker, so I typically go last name, first initial. And then many schools are actually recommending students to make an entirely new email just for the college application process. And that way you can ensure all the information you're getting from the universities is all in one place, so you're not going to miss anything. So that could be a possible recommendation for you. Next is application fees. Each college can choose how much to charge and whether or not to charge a fee at all. So many colleges won't actually charge a fee, but if a college does charge, you can check to see if you're eligible for a fee waiver. A fee waiver will allow you to apply to the college without paying the application fee. And as you saw in Common App, you can do this in the online application through Common App. If you're using a different website, there are other fee waiver options. So if you're applying through a different website, that's totally fine. Income eligible students can use application fee waivers through the National Association for College Admission Counseling, which I will drop that link in the chat in just a minute on where you can access that fee waiver to check if you're eligible. You can also just reach out to the school you're applying to and ask if they have a fee waiver option there. A lot of schools will actually have it at the very end of their application, where you can fill in the information needed to request a fee waiver. So don't let the application fee be what stops you from applying to any institutions. So I'll drop those in the chat. I'm also going to put a list of the schools up that are participating in the free college application week in the chat as well. So you'll have access to both. That free college application week is coming up in the next couple of weeks. Now, next is applying to more than one school. I do recommend, no matter what student I meet with, no matter who, I always recommend applying to more than one school. I know a lot of our students have their eyes on one specific school typically, and that's okay to have a target school or a goal school, but I do recommend to have at least 2 backup schools as well. Some students will choose to have maybe like a reach school, a target school, and a safety school, and that's not a bad idea either. Then we have the residency requirement. Similar to when you applied to Wake Tech, you did have to fill out residency determination application. That's something you'll still need for your new university. You can sign in to your NCRDS account to determine if that will need to be renewed. If you decide to take a year or more off, you will likely need to renew this application. And then briefly, semester hours versus quarter hours. For most of you, if you're applying to a school in North Carolina, you will not have to worry about quarter hours. Most of them are semester hours, if not all. But a semester system is what Wake Tech is. It consists of 2 15-week terms, a fall and a spring. And then, of course, we do have a summer session that's shorter. A quarter semester system consists of 4 10-week sessions, fall, winter, spring, and summer. So if there's a school that you're interested in that does do quarter hours, you may just want to reach out to that particular school about your transfer credits. And then lastly, just some resources. So obviously Mike and I, we are with Wake Tech Academic Advising Office, and we are thrilled to be here with you today, but we do have a number of colleagues in the advising office who are more than happy to meet with you as well on a one-on-one basis if you have questions as you're going through this application process. So we're here for you. We're on the Southern Wake, Northern Wake, RTP campus, Western Wake. So you can schedule a virtual appointment or you can meet with us on campus by a walk-in basis only. Keep in mind, if you do walk in, there could be a wait time just depending on when you try to meet with us. So please don't hesitate. If you run into questions, definitely come in, meet with us. If we're not able to answer them, maybe it's a very specific school-related question, program-related question, we'll try to help you locate the transfer school contact info that you might need to reach out to if it's something that we won't be able to answer for you. The advising website, you can, as we kind of talked about, Extra is a great resource for different events you can find. The university websites also have a ton of information about deadlines, minimum admissions requirements, application requirements, and so much more. And then university representatives. And a lot of those actually do virtual table visits at Wake Tech right now. So if you want to see if your school that you're interested in is doing a virtual table visit, you can access that through the extra site. They're all listed there. I think that about wraps it up. I'm going to go to the last page where we have our general contact information for general advising, our general advising phone, as well as the appointment link, which I'll put in the chat as well, how you can make a virtual appointment with us, and then mine and Mike's contact information, as well as our advising social media handles. So I'm going to go ahead and open up for question and answer, and I'll put that link for the website in the chat box for if you want to make a virtual advising appointment with either of us or with any advisor, really. So, give me just 1 second. Mike, is there anything you wanted to add while we're waiting for questions?
No, I was gonna say you did a great job, covered a lot.
I know, I'm sorry. I didn't think that I was gonna take as long as it did because I wanted to leave a lot of time for questions, but we got through it. So please, ask any questions. You can come off mute if you want, or you can type it in the chat. Either way is fine. Let's see. Okay, we just got a question, and I'll turn my camera back on. Sorry, I had it off for just connection purposes. Can we utilize the ILC for editing and helping with our college essays? That is a great question, and yes, we strongly encourage you to use the ILC for writing your essays. Having someone review them is so important. So I definitely would say go for it, have them review it, and you can even ask other people in your life who you feel like will give you honest feedback to review it too. What do you think, Mike? Anything you wanted to add?
No, I was gonna say I encourage students, just all essays, definitely make sure you have a second pair of eyes, get on them, just for grammatical, for critique, for just assistance. Period.
Yeah, completely agree. It can't hurt to have, more than one person take a look, especially at the ILC. They're really gonna hone in on what may need to be changed or edited.
And just the strategy. So for students who are applying to multiple schools, if you have essays that are on par with the topics, there is nothing wrong with kind of revamping an older essay that's on the topic. Don't reinvent the wheel if you don't have to.
Right. That's true. That's a good point.
And and also save those essays for scholarships. Always have to promote FastWeb, biggest scholarship website in the country. They give away literally hundreds of millions of dollars to students, and you can use them from undergrad all the way to the graduate level.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's fastweb.com, right?
I think they just changed it to org.
Okay. I'll put it in the chat. That's a really good point. Scholarship essays. A lot of times when you're working through your college applications, you might also want to start thinking about your scholarship applications as well. Okay, just put that website in there. Okay, it looks like we have another question. When we need an academic recommendation, specifically as I am applying to Chapel Hill, I have been taking all online classes and I'm not sure what to do about asking a teacher that I haven't built that connection with. What should I do? Mike, do you want to answer first?
Yeah, I was gonna say if you don't have a connection with the teacher, you probably don't want to ask them at all. A lot of times with the recommendations, you want to make sure that you're asking someone that you actually have a rapport with as well as have performed well with. So you could be doing bad in a class but have a great rapport with the teacher. So you want to make sure you have both a great rapport and, exceptional work. And not just for teachers. If you're using an organization, if you're using, a supervisor at your job, a pastor at your church, just they need to be able to say more than you're a good person. They need to be able to speak to your work. They need to be able to speak to your personality. So having that rapport is critical.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's a really great question, and Mike is right. I mean, I would agree with everything that he just said, because you don't want to just pick someone who is going to write a recommendation letter for you but doesn't really know you as a student. And so you really want to make sure that, even if it's starting this semester, building rapport with an instructor, doing that, go ahead and actively seeking out that kind of rapport relationship with that instructor so that you feel comfortable then asking them later for a recommendation letter. But yeah, I completely agree. Don't just ask if you don't have that relationship.
And some students make that mistake even with teachers that they have an A in the class. Like I have a student that I'm working with now who has an A in the class and asked the teacher for a recommendation, and the teacher was like, I mean, you have a 100 or you have an A, but like she doesn't have anything else to say about the student. So you just want to make sure that that connection is actually built. I'm glad you asked that.
Yeah, that's a great question. Any other questions that we can answer today? And again, if you have additional questions, you're always welcome to make another appointment or an advising appointment if you're not comfortable asking any detailed questions today. But so far, you've been good. All right, thank you. It does not look like we have any other questions. Gonna leave it open a couple more minutes. Okay. Yeah. Thank you both so much for attending today. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. We definitely appreciate your time. And thank you for attending this event.